Woo-hoo.
There it goes.
There we go.
That sounds better. Hi there, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in over here to this live podcast, a live feed. And so we invite you to ask your questions. And we're going to get started here in just a minute, so we'll kind of know what's going to be going on. Let me get this going over here.
Should we go ahead and let them know what's going on before you start the podcast?
Why don't we start right in?
Okay, just so you know, I am not the special guest. No, I'm the special guest host. Where is our special guest? Right there. This is the guy.
Surprise. Okay, we just lost some listeners, I think. Some guests. Okay, so we are ready to go, I think, over here whenever you are, Mr. Interviewer.
All right, sounds great. We'll do that in 3, 2. Hi, Jamie Salinas here with the Magic Word Podcast. Now, you may be thinking, who is Jamie Salinas? Well, I am your special guest host because today we are going to interview somebody very special, none other than the host of the Magic Podcast, Mr. Scott Wells. Welcome, Scott.
Why, thank you, Jamie. Yeah, I'm special, yes. My mother always said I was, so.
So how does it feel to be on the opposite side of the interview seat now?
Very strange. You know, from time to time, whenever I ask people, like, what's your favorite, what's your magic word, or what is it that, I ask them a question, and I've only twice had people reverse the question. Well, let me ask you a question, because usually I'm the one letting everyone else speak. So this is a little bit different. And this is in response also to some of the people on Facebook who have said that they would like to know more about me and who is Scott Wells. And so I thought, and you had come forth and said, hey, let me chat with you.
Right, and just so the listeners know, you and I have known each other for over 30 years.
Yeah.
I consider you a personal friend, a colleague, a mentor, and just a really close friend. So I offered my service to come since I'm logistically close by and familiar with a lot of things you do, and we have also partnered on a couple of things. So I thought it'd be great, since I know quite a bit about you, to do the interview.
Right, perfectly so. And those of you who are listening to the podcast, and some who are tuning in right now, boy,
We're in Texas.
We're in Texas.
Howdy.
Yeah, so, have heard Jamie's voice in the past because I have had interviews with him, and of course, as he mentioned, being a partner on some of the projects that we've had, such as Top Talent Productions and our seances. And the podcast we did a while back that was on the Half Halloween continues to be one of the most downloaded episodes.
Yeah, you know, that's a very small niche market, but it's a very interesting and fun market too, nonetheless.
Yeah.
So really, now that people know a little bit about us and a little bit about how we know each other and our backgrounds, let's go ahead and get started. So we're in Houston, Texas.
Right.
And I was born in the area. I'm a native Texan, but you are not. You're not a native Texan.
No, I'm from the Midwest, actually, which is why that I don't have really, I don't think I have a Texas accent, but after living here for 20 plus years, I suspect I picked that up, of course. People say, yes, you have a Southern accent. I like to think I have more of a Midwestern accent, which I'm from Illinois originally, so it's more nondescript. In fact, I understand that a lot of the newscasters on television and radio come from the Midwest because it's a more nondescript kind of an accent. Now, if you're further north, like in Chicago or someplace, then they have more of an accent. East and West and South, it seems like have different accents, but kind of the core of the Midwest is more difficult to try to identify where specifically you're from, if you don't mind me ending a sentence with a preposition.
Absolutely. That's a little inside joke for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so you're not a native Houstonian. You're not a native Texan. But of course, nonetheless, you do have you're the magician with Tex appeal.
Yeah, I got here as quick as I could.
That's right. But let's talk about your background. You grew up in the Midwest. How long were you there? Were you there junior high, high school? How long?
Yeah, I did grow up there and went to school and went to Southern Illinois University for my undergraduate degree in advertising. And a lot of my fraternity brothers in Phi Sigma Kappa were from Chicago area. Seemed like a lot of people went to Southern Illinois University because they wanted to stay within the state and not pay out-of-state tuition for a college, and yet get as far away from home as they could. So those from Chicago came to the deep south, to Southern Illinois, in order to go to college. So that's why a lot of my friends are from Chicago, still to this day.
Now, I know some of the lady listeners are going to be disappointed, but you are married. So let's talk about that. How long have you been married?
I've been married for 43 years. Golly, that's right. No, 41 years we have been married.
Two children?
We've been happily married for about 26.
She must not be here, is she?
She'd probably say 13.
She'd lower the numbers. Exactly.
That's right. So yeah, Kathy is the love of my life, and that I love her more every day. She's wonderful, and mother of our 2 children, both Sean and Nick Wells, and both who live in Texas. And Nick, for a while, even worked with Brian Brushwood. So many of you know Brian. Brian was like one of my many boys, one of my sons, that I knew closely as he was young and growing up and getting more involved in the magic business. And so he was looking for someone to assist him. And so when my son Nick was going to Texas A&M, that he was in Recreation Parks and Tourism Services, and so he was able to do a semester internship with Brian. So therefore, I paid the college, and Brian got his work for free. So
let me get this straight. Your son went on the road with Brian Brushwood, partied, had a great time,
yeah,
helped him in the shows, and he got college credit for this.
correct. Well,
Wow, that sounds awesome.
yeah.
I want to go back and get another degree now. So, hey, Brian, call me. So,
You're never too old.
that's right. I'll go on the road with Brian.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do have 2 sons, and the result of those 2 sons have netted you some grandchildren.
I do. Yeah. I have 4 beautiful granddaughters. 2 of them are twins, and it's interesting that they're all interested in magic. My 12-year-old granddaughter likes to get magic kits for Christmas, and she has been doing some magic in the talent contest in school and everything, so it's kind of fun. And the girls who are the twins, who are 6 years old, are also not camera shy at all. They like to during my curtains and my tricks, and they like to hide, play behind the curtain, and and for me to record them and everything. So they are gaining stage presence.
So that's pretty interesting, because your boys are not really into magic, although one kind of was a little
Right.
bit when he helped Brian. But your grandkids are now interested. So because logistically they're further away, do you do Skype sessions where you teach them and kind of mentor with them, or is it visiting?
I don't. It's just through visiting, but in that regard, it's one of the things that I do is to teach magic long distance, and I have some of my students actually who are from coast to coast. I haven't been coaching or mentoring or teaching anyone from overseas nor outside of our borders of the country, but I do have students from Atlanta to California to Florida, the Northeast then as well. So I do private one-on-one sessions through Skype as well in order to teach. But I haven't, that's just another way that I share magic with others.
Well, since you opened the door, let's go ahead and jump right on into that. So we've learned a little bit about your background. We know a little bit about your family. Your granddaughters are into magic. So the listeners may just know you as hosting the podcast and giving convention updates. Now, of course, I've known you for 30 years. I've seen you do close-up magic. I've seen you do stage magic. So let's talk about that. Tell me about the different types of magic you personally have performed in the past. How you got? Well, let's go back to how you got started.
Yeah.
You started with Grand Illusions, Birds. What did you do?
Well,
how did you get started?
There are many houses, or I should say many rooms in the House of Magic, as we all know, and that is something that I got involved doing at a very young age. I had it, like most magicians, seems like, had a magic kit that my parents gave me for one Christmas, and I showed all the kids in the neighborhood, charged them a nickel a piece. Then after I'd shown them all the tricks, I never thought about going down to the library and getting a book. I mean, I came from a small farming community, about 6,000 people or so, very small town, so there wasn't a lot for me to do magic-wise, and I really didn't think about it until I was working with the Boy Scouts at a later time, and then there was a scoutmaster who'd shown me a rope trick, and that kind of rekindled that interest. And so then they showed me some more rope tricks, and I started demonstrating those for the boys in the troop meetings in order to get their attention. Well, when I moved from Illinois then to Tulsa, Oklahoma, I was going to graduate school and working on my MBA in marketing. And I had we didn't have any children at the time, so I went by the magic shop after work and before my evening classes and started learning a few more things from some of the guys at the magic shop there. Actually, I went there to buy a book on rope tricks, and Pete Peterson, who owned Spotlight Magic there at the time, had shown me a few things with sponge balls and things I'd never seen before. This was just amazing. And so, long story short there, I took a class that Sandy Rhodes was teaching at a local junior college, and then I when I moved to was transferred, or actually took another job in Midland, Texas, which is out in West Texas, I started teaching a class myself for about 3 years or so in the local junior college, based on the one that I'd taken from Sandy. And so with that, I then helped form and charter a local IBM ring in Midland, the Odessa area. And then from there moved to, and that was when I got to know George W. Bush at the time. Of course, he was the one who was in charge of his father's oil company, Arbusta Oil Company. So we had done some things together, and with some United Way program, and he used to come over to the house and we would rehearse things. I would pull the shirt off his back and made him float and cut him in half and all kinds of cool things, and so we got to be good friends. It was interesting too, a quote he had said. He had run for office, like for state representative, I think, when he was in Lubbock, Texas, and had lost a couple of times, in fact. So he said, "You're more successful as a magician than I am as a politician." Some people may still say that's the case, but I think he's a great guy, and I like him, and I have nothing but the highest regard for the gentleman.
No, but wait, just to clarify, we're talking about GW, right?
The president.
Okay, okay. Just to clarify, I just want to make sure, yes.
That's right, that's right.
Okay, that's pretty amazing.
And so then I moved to Omaha, and I helped form another IBM ring in Lincoln, Nebraska, and was involved with the club in the Omaha area, and then moved back to Texas, and this time came to Houston. Then from Houston, went from here to Dallas, and then from Dallas back to Houston. And of course, all of those moves had to do with my previous company, in which I was in the energy business. And I had worked with a variety of energy companies, with Texaco and with Occidental, with Chevron. I was with Northern Natural Gas, which became Enron. I left it before it became the death Enron, you know.
Right.
Anyhow, I want to go back just a second, because what had really inspired me, I guess, to be a magician, because my long-term goal always was to be a full-time professional magician. I mean, I wanted to retire early, let's say at 55, and go work cruise ships, which I did. But the whole thing was, in going back further, I have been interested in advertising. And again, my undergraduate degree was in advertising, the School of Journalism. What I wanted to do was to write, direct, and produce TV commercials. I always felt like that I could be creative in writing. But also with advertising, you are always showing the bright side of something and trying to shade the darker parts of a product, of whatever you're trying to sell. So in other words, there's a little bit of subterfuge that's involved with advertising, as there is with sales.
A little bit of misdirection, would you say?
Exactly. That's the word. So there is misdirection, that you say, hey, look here, not over here.
Right.
So that's why I loved advertising, of trying to get people to convince people that what I'm trying to sell them is true and honest, even though that some of it may be a little bit dishonest, but you know, it's not harmful in any way, certainly, but to make it more entertaining. That's why that it seemed to be natural fit to go into magic and to do magic. And so I think sales is magic in a way, because sales is that very thing that you have to say that your product is different from someone else's. I mean, let's say, like when I'm talking about natural gas, there's no difference in natural gas from one company to the other. Gas is gas. Now gasoline is different, but in natural gas, it comes from the ground, it is no different. It's just a matter of branding and who you're working with. So in other words, you do deals with people because of your relationship. And it's a lot like magic then also, whenever that you have a brand that you are trying to make for yourself. And so I want people to hire Scott Wells, not somebody else. Whenever they call me, I want that to be the last call, and I would go perform for them. So you try to brand yourself as being something that kind of stands out from the others, but there has to be some unique selling point or sales point, USP. And I mean, same thing with you. You want people to contact Jamie Salinas rather than somebody else. And rather than being what I call the Muzak magician, or kind of the person who's in the background, that they just want someone to walk around and stroll, you know, you need to have something that separates you from the rest. There has to be, again, that USP. And so that's something which I think we're always struggling with, but ideally you want to have a client or a book of clients who really want to book you. In other words, that, hey, if you're not available, then I'm not going to have another magician. You know, I want you, and if you can't make it, then we'll use you later, or when can you be available, and we'll move our event.
Right.
You and I have had those kinds of clients, and it's great, you know, to have those. Anyhow, kind of getting way off the track.
Well, you know, it's interesting, as a listener to your podcast, you recently interviewed Marvin Roy.
Mhm.
And one of the things he talked about in the Magic Live episode, I think it was 2 or 3, whatever I'm currently on right now,
Mhm.
so I'm a little bit behind, but he talked about being unique, and it's exactly what you just said. So you started magic pretty young. What was the type of magic you performed, though? Was it close-up,
Oh, well,
stage illusions?
yeah, I was saying that there are a lot of rooms in the house, certainly, and I've gone through a lot of stages in which that I had doves and rabbits and illusions, one thing or another, so that you try a little bit of everything. You see what's going to be right for you. And I believe that when you go through that hierarchy of magical needs, that to begin with, you carry a lot of stuff with you and you try and fool everybody. You're not entertaining them, you're trying to fool people. And you have to try to, again, find yourself, I guess. And in this particular case, I was really always trying to find what it is that interested me the most. I did like working with the livestock and the larger illusions. I mean, I had a zigzag and a sub-trunk and all kinds of stuff that I used to use, and my wife, Kathy, had assisted me on a lot of these things, but it's just that it is got to be so overwhelming as far as packing things. I mean, I have literally purchased cars based upon the size of illusions that I'm going to be packing in that vehicle. Funny story, for an example, I bought Walter Blaney's ladder levitation some years ago, and I was driving a Toyota Camry, and so my son Sean and I had driven up to Walter's house here in Houston, and to buy it. We had already made the deal, and so he was spending a few hours with us, showing us how to put it together, tear it apart, pack it, put it, you know, and all the,
Right.
about 3 or 4 hours. And so then we put them all back in the ATA cases, and then came outside in the driveway, you know, with them. And Walter said, well, Scott, where are you going to carry this? How are you going to get this home?
That's a pretty good impression, by the way.
Well, Walter, I really hadn't thought about that, because obviously it's not going to fit in a Camry. And our other car was a small car also, so there was no room in either of the 2 cars that my wife and I had. So he said, well, I'll bring it to your house tomorrow, and you can figure it out from there. So I ended up buying a PT Cruiser because it was just the right size. Right. I had like 2 inches to spare front and back and sides for the hoop and the cases and everything to fit in the front to back. It was just the perfect size for hauling around that illusion. So
Right.
Likewise, when I had a zigzag, you know, I had to buy a Suburban because it was just one big zigzag, you know, that was sticking there. Plus,
Sure.
You know, Super X and other kinds of things, and so you know. But of course, we did a lot of the usual birthday party things whenever I kind of got started to begin with too, and particularly in Midland because it was less than 100,000 people. It was easy to get around town. You know, here in Houston, when you have 4 million people, then it's a lot more difficult, as you could appreciate.
Oh, sure.
You know, one of the top birthday parties guys here in Houston.
Well, you know, me personally, you know, it's almost, I've got 2 kids in college, so I'm almost taking all the work I can.
Of course.
But speaking of, though, that title, how would you classify yourself to other magicians? Like, for example, you know, I am a family entertainer. I'm also a corporate entertainer, but I don't do any illusions. So how would you describe yourself? What your current stage of magic?
Yeah,
right
I would call myself a corporate entertainer, but I have over the past, really the last several months even, I begin to rethink that word corporate entertainer. I was thinking that because I was talking with an advertising person who contacted me about advertising on Yelp. And as I was looking at my business page, I was thinking corporate entertainer, and corporate entertainer denotes something to us, or connotes something to us as a magician, but not necessarily to the audience that I'm trying to appeal to. In other words, what does that mean? You know, corporate has a couple different definitions, and so it should be entertainment for company functions, or something like that, because corporate seems fairly generic then also, as far as the word definition even. And so, I mean, uniform and just generic. And so it should be something that people would want to hire you for their company event. So I see myself really as that because I, again, have evolved through a lot of different things. The types of things that I really enjoy doing are stand-up comedy magic shows and mentalism, and also strolling. I love close-up and doing strolling when I work the Magic Castle, although I've worked a parlor a few times, that mainly I work in the close-up room. I really enjoy working with people intimately who can actually be in front of me and hands-on. You're putting something in their hands. They're going to pick a card, hold this or that or something, but you want to have an emotional experience that they will take away and remember, as opposed to what Michael Lamar would say, bubble gum for the eyes, because when you're gone, they forget about it. But, going back to mentalism, kind of going off on a different tangent there, I was interested and am interested in mentalism, and initially because of my relationship and business partnership with the Bandcheck that we've had with magicinspirations.net since,
I like that.
since
Okay.
1987.
Well, before we get to that part of it,
Yeah.
let's talk about you mentioned that you can tutor on Skype.
Online,
Yeah, and you've done that, and you still continue to do that. You mentioned all the various venues. Now, you and I have worked together at Magic Island.
Mhm.
I was there for 12 years. You were there a lot longer. Let's talk about the style of magic in the types of venues, because you mentioned strolling magic. It's all going to vary depending on whether you're somebody's home, whether if you're at a corporate event at a hotel, or if you're at the Magic Castle, Magic Island,
True.
Magic themed show place. Let's talk about that. So tell us about the different kind of venues. You mentioned cruise ships. So
Right.
let's talk about the different styles of magic that you've done for those different venues.
Right. Well, in the Magic Island, first of all, that was the most unique and the best experience ever, as you know, because we had this type of experience that happened nightly, and they needed us to, Scott Hollingsworth was the entertainment director, and he had booked magicians from around the world to come and work at this beautiful venue, and so it was very nice, and that was the opportunity where we got to see other people's styles, and not that we were stealing their styles, but we could appreciate and kind of see the variety of this without having to leave our hometown, here basically. And as a result, that we are a product of our environment and our generation, and so and our friends, because when we sit around, we tell jokes, share tricks or ideas or things, we will incorporate some of those things into what we do. It just organically, some of those things happen. So that's how I started adding some mentalism, because obviously my best friend is a mentalist, and so I, just talk about it all the time, so some of that rubs off into me. But when working at the Magic Island, I was mainly one of the house magicians for the close-up rooms, but would also fill in on the stage whenever that there were some guys who came in and had to leave for a night or two. I remember like Vito Lupo had to go back to New York. He was shooting a TV commercial for a couple nights, so I filled in, or different things like that. But of course would have my own 2 or 3 weeks when I would come in and perform a stage act. And it used to be that the Magic Island would have a what Scott Hollingsworth would call a furniture act, and then a comedy act. And the furniture act was just, so it could be a manipulator. I mean, I remember Mako Tindo, who came in, who was phenomenal, with jumbo card manipulation and things that he did. Rest his soul, what a guy. But other people who had come in and were doing silent acts, basically for about 8 to 12 minutes. Hollingsworth would be the MC, and then we'd have like about another 30 minutes of a comedy magic act, like Kerry Pollack or different people. So you might have Brett Daniels come in for 10 minutes and then have Kerry Pollack, follow. So, what a great evening.
Right. Oh, yeah. I love those
You
years.
remember, yeah.
Yes, of course.
So that was something that I did more of, those types of shows, and so sometimes I'd fill in, and Kathy and I would do the sub-trunk and the zigzag and whatever, and other times would fill in and doing the comedy portion of it. For a while, they even had a parlor area, which they later made into they moved the showroom, changed the showroom format, made that into more of a dining area. But for a while, that was tantamount to the parlor at the Magic Castle. So I enjoy doing those types of shows, and because you're doing it 2, 3, 4, 6 times a night, that you really get tight. You know what lines work, how to stand, and then with Scott Hollingsworth being a director, saying you might try this, or this isn't working, or stand here, or be in the light over here, or pick this up now instead of later, or whatever. It was excellent. It's always good to have a director if you can like that. So that's the kind of magic really that really appealed to me, and I found my niche of being in close-up and stand-up for the two things really that I guess I really gravitated towards and enjoy the most now.
Well, I understand personally what you mean by learning under fire and everything else. Now, I, of course, have a lot of interesting stories that happened in Magic Island, but we're talking to you today. So
Well,
tell
no.
me.
Can you tell me one of your stories
No,
first?
no. I mean, I've had people die, and I had somebody die in one of my shows. Not
Really?
necessarily
Was he on stage or was he in the audience?
Not at Magic Island. It was
Oh.
at the, just quickly, it was at the museum when they had the magic themed exhibit. And
Yeah.
I worked on the opening night, and of course, it's a lot of older members. And the curator came up to me after the show and said, Jamie, you're fantastic. I'm so glad you continued on your show despite the issue. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Because I had no idea what the issue was. You know, the stage lights, you only see past a few rows. And apparently, one of the older contributors had a heart attack in the audience and died during my show, and paramedics came and took him away.
Wow.
And so, fortunately, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
So I just continued on my show.
Right.
So, can you give me some stories of interesting things that happened at Magic Island? I mean, you know, I superglued John Chirac's eye one night when he busted it open
Cut it or
doing the sub-trunk. So I'm sure something interesting like that has happened to you.
You know, I wish I had some interesting stories, other than just to say that some of my fondest memories are not just being on stage or backstage and working with a lot of these guys who are the superstars of Magic today, who have really, you know, started in the trenches and worked their way forward. And you can name anybody, it seems like, who's been through there, from, you know, Lance Purton or whomever else, all the way. What I enjoyed most were the dinners, and you got to agree with me. You know, sitting there in the evening before the show is kind of a quiet time, and there would be a booth where that we could all sit and share ideas and stories and tricks and personal things, just, you know, about families, and you really get to know these guys.
Right.
And so you become, you know, I believe that colleagues are those who not only work together but also are friends. You know, I mean, a friend is one thing, and a colleague is someone who then you work with as well, you know, in the industry. And so these guys who had come through, I feel, are my colleagues, because we have talked about our children. We've talked about, you know, a diagonal palm shift or whatever, you know, and have been backstage. As to, you know, specific stories, you know, I can't think really of anything that has gone wrong or had any kind of a major problem or an issue that other than some of the things within the island. I remember when it was raining, that, you know, water would leak in
On the stage,
on the stage sometimes, and it would be slippery, and so I had to watch out for that. Or they would drip on the front few chairs, first few rows. The next night they just threw a sheet over it, so this way, that, you know, instead of repairing the leak, they just waited for it to dry out.
Right. Unfortunately, I remember those times. But yeah, you know, for me, it was very special to be sitting at the entertainers table.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, the first night I sat there, I wanted to pinch myself. It's like, wow, I'm actually here.
Yep.
Do we have some questions coming in?
Oh, I don't know. Why don't you
We're looking at some of the just
take a
for
look
those
over there, Jamie, so
we're broadcasting live right now as well.
wearing your glasses, you can see
Cool.
the graphs.
Well, we're both getting older here. Cool tables have turned that so cool. Christ,
Just taking a moment here for him to.
I'm just catching up on some of the comments here. No big questions coming in yet, so we're talking here.
Okay.
We're covering pretty much everything so far, but you know, we talked about Magic Island too. I have personally only worked once at Magic Castle, and you're pretty much a veteran there. Tell us about the very first time you worked at the Magic Castle.
Now that story is to me very interesting, I think, and I can tell, which is different from the Magic Island. Again, Magic Island, I guess you kind of work there often enough. It's just, you know, it's like trying to tell a story from your office. You know, there's nothing really unusual that happens in your office in a person's day-to-day work. However, the first time I went to the castle, when Di Vernon had come in to see me.
Exactly. You can have Uncle Bob sitting in the front row at Magic Island, but you got Di Vernon sitting in the front row for you. So you're performing the first time at Magic Castle, and Di Vernon's coming in to see you.
On the first night. You know.
Wow, what's that like?
Yeah, Monday night. And he's sitting right there, front row, stage right. The routine that I had was very unique, and some ideas that, again, at the time I was living in Midland, Texas, so I didn't have the benefit of a lot of other magicians. I'd actually attended or had been to the Magic Castle once before, just to see what the place was like. I'd gone with Charlie McFarland and David Fields, who were pilots, private pilots in Midland. And Charlie, in his own right, is a spectacular magician and a good friend of us both, and works a ton of trade shows. Highly recommend him. He's a great guy, great magician. A lot of original ideas, and also, so I'm performing on this night, and I again have what I think are some original ideas. And afterwards, Vernon is telling people, I gotta go in there. See this kid? He does this thing with this little chop cup and these sugar cubes. Hey, just go, Steve. I think go over there and see the show. I think you'll like it.
I'm laughing because I was going to say I smell another impression coming along. So I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yes. And he came in 2 more times even, and so he was telling people to go and see the show, and it just thrilled me when I was hearing the compliments. And what really got me even more is I was I don't know, like on Wednesday night sitting at the bar right there, and Di came up and sat beside me. And said, oh, yeah, I like what you're doing over there. He said, and he came over to talk to me, said, from his chair, and said that he really enjoyed some stuff. And he said, let me show you something I'm working on over here. And he showed me this little thing where he had a glass of a drink on top of a napkin, and he borrowed a coin and just did a flip vanish, and picked it like he's dropping it into the glass, and then it's gone, and then lifts it up and it's underneath the napkin. And this, he said, it's not in print yet, but I'm working on this. I'm going to be this will be somewhere eventually. And so it did. So I said, well, I collect business cards also. Could I have one of your cards? Well, I think I got one here somewhere. And he opens up his wallet and he's fishing through, and he's got Max Malini and Cardini and all these guys who have died of their business cards. And he pulls out, I got one left. Here you go, take this. So he gave me one of his cards, which is a prized possession of mine now. So, it was quite a memory.
Wow, that sounds really awesome.
He just seemed like such a nice guy, So people have different stories with Vernon who have seen him, who have known him, or whatever, and it may have been good, bad, or indifferent. In my case, that I have nothing but just the nicest things, because he was nice to me, he was fatherly to me, and I guess, and he liked me. So
right. Well, me personally, getting into magic, I had an idol, somebody I wanted to be like.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that was Vito Lupo. Good-looking guy,
Sure.
Awesome performer, incredible theatrically. So I wanted to grow up and be Vito Lupo. So who did you want to be when you grew up, when you were in magic?
Well,
starting out.
Again, starting out when I was a child, having that magic kit, and then later when I was a scoutmaster doing rope tricks, I didn't know anybody. And at the time, I guess, which would have been when I was working with the Scouts, it would have been in the 60s, would have been Doug Henning. And I saw Doug Henning live in St. Louis. My wife and I and another couple went over to see his show. We went backstage and talked with him afterwards, and he was another nice guy, and was quite cordial. And then there were 2 ladies who came in and started talking about transcendental meditation, and it's like, no, he just completely,
right.
turned from, and it's like, we're done talking magic, it's all about, TM now. So that was kind of interesting. But he was a nice fella, and he was inspirational. Mark Wilson, I guess, and I'm saying this because those are the people who were on television that I saw, because I hadn't seen really any other magician to compare. I remember missing a lecture, first lecture when I was in Tulsa in the late 70s. Came into Spotlight Magic to Pete Peterson's place, and it was Al Goshman. And
wait, so your first lecture you attended was Al Goshman?
I didn't attend that one because it was going to be like $10. I thought, oh boy, $10? I mean, why did I pay $10?
Now you're kicking yourself.
Of course I am, And I didn't get to go out with him, go to dinner or whatever. I was talking with the guys who did, because they were talking to him about the sponge balls. This one guy, they told me a story that he said, well, this one fella had asked Al about how he makes sponge balls, and he said, well, that's mine. He said, that's my secret. I don't share that with anybody,
right.
So, it wasn't public knowledge as to how that he, what was that made them super soft and all that
right.
kind of stuff. But no, I had, I was going to graduate school and, paying for school, and just a poor guy, and didn't have, 2 shell coins to rub together,
Right. Yeah, my first lecture was Michael Amar. I was a college student. And I had finals the next day, and there I was at a magic lecture, trying to figure out what I could buy and have enough gas to make it home. So yeah, I definitely understand that situation.
Yeah.
So now that you've, we've talked about how people you idolized. Now that we'll just call you a veteran of magic. People look up to you and see you at that that mentor type personality. So how does that make you feel coming full circle now, and you're becoming that type of person?
Well, I feel like I have a lot to share because I have had a lot of experience, and I think it's important to pass that on, which was why that I was teaching a class in the colleges, and why I mentor some and will teach others. I think that we have invaluable art, and we need to share this with people. And again, yes, I have worked cruise ships, and I've worked in Las Vegas, and I've worked I've lectured different places. I also am the person who books lectures. I've been booking lectures since 2012, and I've had hundreds of magicians who've stayed in my home. John Calvert and Michael Marr. So many people who were friends beforehand and have gotten to know each other even more because of the time that we have spent together. Here, and again, different venues. I worked with Doc Eason at the Tower way back when he was having his children's festival. In
Snowmass,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things, and with birthday party magicians, is whenever that someone is interested in magic, that I try to encourage them to go on and do whatever I can to find out what their interest might be, what they want to learn. Are they wanting to know just for the simple curiosity of how a trick works? And for an example, whenever I was teaching the classes in the local junior colleges, that I would say up front, the reason I'm here is not to tell you how David Copperfield made the Statue of Liberty disappear. I'm here to talk about secrets, but you're going to then work with these secrets and come back and actually perform, because I believe magic is a performing art. Yes, you can be a collector and be a magician then also, or a builder or whatever else, but it's the performer that it's all about, because my philosophy is that if you're not working, you're only fooling yourself. And so I think it's important for others to see that, and not just through YouTube. So that means there's going to be an audience who sees you and reacts to you then as well. So I think that if somebody were to ask me about, I want to get interested in magic, or rather I am interested in magic, I want to learn some magic, I want to find out, well, what do you want to do with it? Oh, I was just saying about the schools, is that the second week I would probably say that less than half the people would return, because they thought they were coming to actually just sit there, and be an audience, and that was not what it was all about.
Not hands-on, not participation.
Exactly. Once they learned that they were going to have to learn things and do something and stand in front of an audience, then they didn't come back, which is an important thing about magic, because it also helps young people in particular, anyone in general, to become a better speaker, have more self-confidence, be self-aware, and you get more friends. If you're a young person and a little bit shy, this is a good way of getting kind of out of that shell. So again, I want to share that with them. So again, I'll ask someone, what it is you want to learn. What, do you want to work birthday parties? Do you want to just, if you're an older person, do you want to do it in your sales? Do you want to have this to punctuate a sales message that you have? And I have some people I counsel on that they go out and are salesmen, and they want to do some things for their clients in some of their sales meetings and presentations. So I suggest certain things that will work, because one of the things I really, really love to do, and I don't do as many as I want, and that is trade shows. I feel like I excel in that, because I know how to write a script that's going to actually sell the company product.
You're an advertising person, there you go.
Exactly right. Because I know, and I tell the companies that it is not magic, it's the message. Magic is just a medium to deliver the message, basically. Because people are not paying you to come and entertain. In hospitality rooms, yes, but not on the showroom floor. You're there to try to attract people, to tell them about your product, and you only have a short amount of time. It's just another message that you're bombarded with throughout the day. It's an advertising message, but you want that to be something that they will remember. Magic is the hook.
Well, it's interesting, some of the things you mentioned. Again, as a listener, Lance Burton talked about at Magic Live, and again, I personally felt like I almost attended with your podcast, so that was really good. And I missed the first one, by the way. Yeah, and I missed all of them after that. But anyway, Lance Burton mentioned about SpongeBall
That's
vanish.
right.
The retention vanish and teaching. Paying it forward, and that's exactly what you're doing. So I know you've lectured to other magic clubs. So you have a lecture series you put together, and you do that as well.
I do. First of all, yes, I have my own lecture. I've lectured at the castle for the last 3 consecutive years with completely different lectures. And there are a variety of things to talk about. Again, because of my background of different things like I want to share and people seem to be interested in. But as a lecture chairman, if you will, or lecture coordinator, I have a group of about 36 cities around the country who I can talk to and see if they are interested in hosting this magician or that. And so each month I've got different people from mostly around the United States, but I'm getting a lot of international talent also who would like to try. For an example, I just, this next spring, I'm probably working with Babel from France who wants to come and lecture. He doesn't speak English very well, but through his French interpreter I was visiting at Magic Live, and so I'm going to try to set up a tour for Babel. So again, I've had hundreds of people over the last 15 years or so who I have booked their lecture. And it all started because of Michael Amar. On the SAM's 100th anniversary of their organization, that Mike Amar was the person who went around and gave free lectures. And he told the president, the national president of the SAM, hey, you got to get Scotty, that he knows what he's doing, and he's organized, he can put the thing together, and I booked him for, 30 cities or something, and then I later thought, that's easy enough. I think now I've got the contacts, I can carry this
Right.
on, So.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
Some of your interviewees have given away books and DVDs and things that they do. Why don't we give the listeners some Scott Wells lecture notes? What do you think?
Yeah.
Let's do that.
I will do that. I hadn't thought about that, but those are in the Magic Shop that's on the Magic Word podcast, and you can take a look at that and get some details on it. And I will, the most recent one is multiple. It's alternate streams of revenue in magic. Is my latest set of lecture notes, full color lecture notes, and sure, I will give away, let's say, 3 of those.
Oh, wow. So three lucky listeners will get a copy of your lecture notes. So what do they need to do? They're going to click on the link in the show notes, or how is that going to work?
In the show notes that I will have a form where they can fill out with your name and your email address, and that's all you need to do. And then you can send that, and I'll have a random drawing. And as you had pointed out in the past, well, like you and I had given away the paranormal.
Sam's notes, right?
Yes. Right. And there have been some other things that some of the guys have given away their DVDs and lecture notes and things like that as well. As long as that's going to be within the domestic United States, that shipping is free. Then if it's going to be overseas and you are selected randomly as a winner, then I will
pay the shipping.
Yeah,
that's great.
Figure out what the shipping's going to be and let you know. Yeah.
Okay, so if the link is still live in the show notes, then the contest is active. Once the link is gone, because this show could be archived and people might be listening 100 years from now when we're listening to this, right? So the contest will be over by then.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the end here, so let's go ahead and wrap things up with the podcast itself. What episode are you on, not counting this one? How many have you released so far?
Well, I believe about 316, and I'm going to be having a few more coming up with the TAOM. The Texas Association of Magicians will be the next convention I'm going to be attending, the last of this year, 2016. And speaking of conventions and the podcast, the reason I kind of got into all this was because of Doc Vickers, and working with him in the Magic Newswire, I have nothing but the highest regard for that gentleman. That Doc Vickers has given so much to the fraternity, and I don't think people really recognize how important that he is. But I will say that Bill Kalush and the Conjuring Arts Society that Ask Alexander is going to be transcribing his archives and putting that into writing. So this way you're going to be able to hear that, because his podcasts were amazing, in which that he has talked with so many people, and he's gotten into more details as to how a person got involved in magic, who their mentor is, their favorite book, and some other kinds of. It's not a 20-question kind of a thing. It is, but it doesn't feel that way. It's very organic. He's a great interviewing. He's a good friend, and I had worked with him then on a podcast along with David Kay and Cameron Ramsey, and we just had a wonderful time. And I started submitting some of the convention.
Right, the reports, yes.
Reports. And he was saying, after he did a couple of them, he said, I really don't want my podcast to be known as the place for convention reports. And he said, you ought to think about doing your own. Well, this is about the time he had another more full-time job, and he was doing fewer and fewer of Magic Newswire updates. And so it was a natural transition for me to kind of pick up and do that, certainly. And so I do attend 2, 3, or 4 conventions annually where I am either a performer or lecturer or master of ceremonies. So if any of you, by the way, are organizers, you might want to keep me in mind.
There you go. ScottWells.com.
ScottWells.com, that's right. But that's kind of how that I evolved into that a few years ago, and I guess it's probably been now about getting close to 4 years since that I've been doing this. And I try to do it on a regular basis now and releasing them on Thursdays, 9 o'clock Central Time, unless that there's going to be a special convention updates. When I do those daily things, then there's enough time, me posting those, I think, to get tired of my voice after a while, so I don't post it Thursday before or after a lot of times.
Well, you've kind of, during this process, have evolved the podcast into, what is it, about an hour long now is what you shoot for?
I try to keep it about an hour. No, that's exactly right. For an example, I spoke with
I'm sorry, time's up.
with Paul Daniels, and as we were doing a Skype interview, it was kind of funny because last Christmas I always try to do a little bit something special on Christmas, and let me just kind of give you a heads up that this year on Christmas I've got something that's going to be completely different than I've done in the last few years that again involves a lot of magicians and some of their voices. But I had done The Grinch Who Stole Christmas and had Eugene Berger starring as the Grinch. Well, I got an email then from Paul Daniels saying, Scott, that Debbie and I were sitting here at the breakfast table just enjoying a podcast with our mutual friend Eugene as the Grinch. Just want to let you know he did a great job and it made us smile. And so I sent him back an email saying, hey, is there an opportunity for the two of us perhaps to do a little bit of a Skype chat for the podcast? He said, absolutely. Well, I had known Paul for a while because he had been a guest of honor at the Fechter's Finger Flicking Frog 4F convention. And I'd seen him at a few other conventions, and we had passed some time together. So he said, fine. So we had a few things to talk about, actually a lot of things to talk about, and he talks more than me. So it's one of those things where I just have to ask a question and then he takes off. So that was about a 2-hour podcast. I should say a 2-hour chat, and so I broke that up into 2 1-hour sessions. And the reason is that I have had podcasts in the past that have gone on much longer than an hour, some more than 2 hours. And I know that there are some podcasts today, the magician podcasts also, that are lengthy. I have found and have learned from some of my listeners that the times they listen are times whenever they're working out in the gym or on a jog or on the treadmill or commute back and forth to work, and that may be just a 1-hour time, and that's about all that they want to invest basically on that. And where I am, so I try to keep it down to about an hour if I can. Obviously, the advantage of a podcast, it can go on as long as you want. Which in one case, a few years ago, when they had the quote "into the universe," when the world was supposed to, according to Mayan calendar, I had spoken to a variety of people, and I had 9 hours of content. And obviously, I knew back then, even I'm not going to break this up into. And I thought I can break it up into 3, separate 3-hour. And I thought even that's a lot, so I broke it up into a few more. But that was when I first started thinking, well, this really needs to be a little bit shorter, and particularly like for podcasts that are with conventions, we have different people who I'm talking with, and so someone else had suggested that I should put timestamps, so that way that they don't have to listen to the whole thing if they're more interested in listening to, let's say, Marvin Roy, or they want to hear me talk with.
They can skip to whatever section they're interested in.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Excellent. I like that.
And so,
now putting on this podcast, some people think, oh, there's nothing to it. You just hit to record on your computer and it's pretty much free, but that's not the case. So you have quite a number of expenses. You have equipment, you have time, web hosting, all that stuff. You have a program where some of the listeners can sponsor and be a friend of the Magic Word. So tell me about how that works.
Thank you. Hadn't thought we'd go that direction, but thanks for asking. Always try to get in a plug where I can.
Well,
Yes, there's a thing called Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com / the magic word, where you can go and find out more information. There is a video on there also, or if you just go to themagicwordpodcast.com, that there is a link that says become a friend of the Magic Word, and you can click on that, and that will give you some information also. You can donate one time up in the top left of the podcast. There is a donate now button on for PayPal, or you can be an ongoing supporter, and again, any amount. I've had some people who have given as little as $1. I don't mean a month, I mean like $1.
Sure.
And others who have given much more, and I'm appreciative for each and every amount that I receive. And I thank all the listeners for their support, and I treat everyone the same. I try to make this very wholesome. I don't feel like what I have been providing as far as the content goes is the same as what you get from other podcasts. Particularly, let's say, like with Don Vickers, that he had an agenda, and a few others do too. Magician Business, the couple of guys who were putting that on had a business agenda for their content, and mine has always basically been for the listeners to get to know magicians on a more purely intimate and friendly basis, so they know them like I know them, because I want people to feel as if that, hey, I didn't know you like golf, or that your charity was for homeless dogs, or or whatever it's going to be. So this way, whenever they see these quote celebrity magicians of whoever, Jeff Hobson or David Williamson or whomever, so this way that they feel like they can have something that they can go and talk about with them, rather than just saying, hey, can I have your autograph or take a selfie? That, hey,
Right.
I heard you on the podcast and I didn't know you da-da-da-da-da. And so I feel like that I can humanize people a little bit by me talking with them. And I feel that as colleagues that we can talk on a more personal basis, as opposed to me being an interviewer that you might see on television or in other radio stations, or even in other podcasts where someone said, well, I had a drink with this guy last month and so now we're best friends. It's like, well, okay.
Well, sure. Now the podcast obviously is evolving.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing video live right now on Facebook
Right.
right now, so people can actually see the chat, or see our conversation, chat away with some questions, that kind of thing, and we've kind of thrown those in. We like the Ghostbuster shirt, they like the poster here in the back. What is it?
Yeah, the poster, yeah.
Right.
Bird Nation University.
They
shirt.
mentioned the shirt, they mentioned the tablecloth, all kinds of stuff here. Oh, look at this. It's like a David Letterman kind of thing. So for the listeners who are listening, basically Scott has a Scott Wells coffee mug sitting right there, facing the camera. So that's really good. So obviously you're evolving with technology and with things changing. Can you give us an insight on anything else you might be thinking about other than the Christmas special, or are you just open to trying out new things?
I'm open to trying out new things. And let me just say, when I say I'm thankful for listeners, in particular the friends of the Magic Word who donate their financial support to me, that I listen to and appreciate all the comments that I get, and people who see me in conventions. I'll walk down the hallway and they'll turn around and say, I recognize that voice. They've heard me, but they didn't recognize my face. And so they'll say, hey, have you thought about doing this, or this? For an example, I'm now doing some reviews from Murphy's Magic.
Product reviews.
Yes,
Right.
product reviews. You have been doing product reviews for the NUM for
Right, for
years?
Magic Immunity in mind. Yes.
Right. And so they have been sending me a few things that I have been reviewing, and I like to review these on the podcast when I have time. Again, try to keep this within an hour. So if I've got 10 minutes left at the end of the podcast, then I try to squeeze in something. They send me a few things. Most of the things are downloads that you can get immediately, that I can link to you, and like at the table lectures and things like this.
Right, those are great, yes.
Yeah, I've learned so much and gotten a lot out of it. So, and before I forget it, then also, one of the things I'd like to do to add to some more content is what's happening at the Magic Circle in London, England. So I want to try to expand my international audience, if at all possible. For an example, when I was at FISM in Italy last year, the listenership went up exponentially because I had more international listeners who were listening to that, plus others who wanted to attend FISM to find out about it. Much like whenever we had this Greg Wilson controversy, that the listenership went up exponentially because I think people like to watch train wrecks or something, you know, and just kind of see how this was going to unfold. Well,
Right.
I've had a lot of nice compliments of saying that I'd handled that expertly, and I appreciate those kind words then too. I would like to, as I said, the Magic Circle. I am not only a lifetime member of the International Brotherhood of Magicians and also Society of American Magicians, but there was a period of time that was for open enrollment to become a lifetime charter member of the Magic Circle, which I did. And a couple of years ago, that I was honored by becoming a MIMC, member of the Inner Magic Circle, which is the highest you get with Gold Star, which means you're a performer as opposed to just being someone who's a
Collector
collector.
was-
Exactly, exactly.
And speaking of, that's what I was going to ask you.
And that was on my bucket list, so you don't know
Yeah.
how that meant
That's
so
awesome.
much to me.
So your listenership has gone worldwide, global.
Hmm.
You've won some awards. You've been Magician of the Year.
3 times, yeah.
And I mean, 3-time winner here in Houston is pretty amazing. I mean, we had to create a rule that said you couldn't win it more than 3 times after you won it 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a fantastic career. Is there anything else you'd like to give the listeners, let them know about yourself that we haven't covered?
Gosh, no. Magic-wise, that I think that covered most things. Of course, after we zip this up, that I'll probably say, oh yeah, I had this, this, and this, you know, that we didn't talk about, you know, other types of things. There are so many things that I would like to do more of, like I mentioned, trade shows. I'd like to go work a few more cruise ships. I love traveling. I like to work conventions. I have lectured overseas, and next year I will be traveling to France. I'll be lecturing in France, I believe, during the month of May.
Will you be in Paris?
I'll probably be in Paris. You went there. Your daughter was.
Well,
went to school
you
there.
should go. I didn't get a chance to go, but you should go. There's a Magic Club meeting that meets at midnight,
Okay.
and they won't tell you the location. You have to email them to find out where it is,
Yeah.
and it goes from midnight to sunrise.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it as I was with a family kind of thing, but that sounds like something that would be really interesting.
Right.
Some kind of secret society kind of deal. So hopefully you can make that.
A few years ago, I had performed also with Mark Fiskin and Anthony Darkstone, Tony Brook, and Ali Bongo and Pat Page and some other guys in Scotland. And that was fantastic. And Mark Fiskin has been putting this together year after year, and I hope to possibly go back next fall to join them for that again this next year. So that's another possibility as far as some international travel and getting to visit with some other magicians. But I have so many good friends, not only in the U.S., but throughout the world, who I have gotten to know well. I've worked with them, like I said, you know, with Ali Bongo and Pat Page and others that, again, are not just friends but colleagues that I feel that we're talking. I'm not at their level. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to say that they can respect me as I do them for what we do.
Right.
You know, at whatever level we are. You know.
Right. Now, I'm not sure when this is going to release, but next week you and I will be at the TAOM, so
Right.
there'll be more podcasts coming out.
Yep.
So that sounds great.
Jamie, thanks very much. You know, I again feel like I was talking a lot, but then
Well, you are the interviewee today. I'm the listener.
I'm getting
So,
tired of hearing my own voice.
I'm the listener both as
It seems so strange.
an online listener and a listener right here in person. So before we go, what is your magic word? And by the way, you've never asked me mine.
Okay.
So no, you have not. But I'll wait for another time.
Okay.
This is your interview. What is your magic word?
I mentioned this a little bit earlier, and that is that if you, a magician who is not working is only fooling himself. And I would say that that's very important. That you need to go out and just do it, you know, and actually perform. And in my other philosophy of life has been since grade school I came up with, and that is, what is life if you can't live it? And the important thing there to learn is just to say, to don't just look at what other people are doing, but experience it yourself. Go out and actually do it.
What is a Nike commercial?
Just
Just do it.
Just do it, yeah. But, you know, what's life if you can't live it? So you're not living life if you don't try to grab it and do the best you can. Even if you can't, at least you've tried something. You know, that's why that I've tried so many different kinds of, whether it's mentalism or stage or illusions or escapes or, you know, close-up or cards or coins or whatever it is. I mean, try a little bit of everything and find out what is you. So by living those experiences, you will find your character and you'll find the real you. So, and never quit searching. So there you
Well, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Of course, you know, we're friends and everything too. But I've always wanted to do this, and you didn't know this. But
Okay.
for the Magic Word Podcast, this is Jamie out. That's a wrap.
That guy. Okay.
Thank you, Jamie.
Well, hey, thank you guys again very much for listening and tuning in and watching this surprise guest.
That's right.
To hear from this old guy with the beard.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks again. This is Scotty out.
And Jamie out.
And Jamie out. That's right.